fish. He was like, fuck me, what's that? And I was like, I'll send it to you, bro. So then the very next day, he emailed me back and he was like, I want that. And it was hooked. And because he saw me play it and it went off, he was like, yeah, I'll have that.
First hand.
And yeah, first hand. And that was like, thank you, God. And that's what put me back on the ladder again. I remember buying one turntable. I had my dad. Just the one. Could only afford one.
Yeah. Well, we have an extra guest. Our first dog guest.
That's taken up most of my time, actually. Oh, Lolly's farted. Sorry.
Oh, she has. Oh, that's
Lolly,
honking.
come on. No wonder you've gone over there.
I'm all right. It smells like one of mine, I think.
Talking about panicking, because of the blocked ears, it made it so I couldn't hear my own voice properly. It's not just solely down to you being good or having talent or anything. You always need somebody to recognise that or take you on board or give you a lift up, you know. If you're not lucky, right time, right place, like my friend James put me on that gig, and thank God he did. If I wasn't there, I probably would have had to go and get a job, you know. When we did speak the first time, there was no way I could have done it. The anxiety was so bad. I didn't want to leave the house.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for the support so far on this project. It means the absolute world to us.
However, we've noticed that around 75% of you who listen and watch the show haven't yet hit the subscribe or like button.
So in order for this community to grow and allow us to build this project, we have a small request from you.
Please hit the subscribe or like button on the app that you're listening or watching this show. Your commitment... What were you laughing at? I did a really good job, didn't I? Right, do another one. Please hit the subscribe or like button on the app you're watching or listening this show. Listening this show.
Remember to smile.
I'm always smiling.
You weren't.
Was I not? Stop it. Kelly's fucking waiting for us outside, bro.
Compose. Right, let's do it.
Please hit the subscribe or like button on the app you're listening to or watching this fucking show. Right, come on, just one more. Please hit the subscribe or like button. Your commitment is our commitment.
Let's do this.
Fuck off. Come on, more.
Yeah, I'm not going to cheeseball it up, but I'll go, let's do this.
That'll do. We're just sat in silence, which would be fucking weird. We're rolling.
Yeah, boys, can we not do a silent podcast, please?
I didn't do it.
No. Martin, welcome. How you doing, mate?
Very good, mate. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we have an extra guest somewhere down there, don't we?
Oh, Lolly.
First dog guest.
First dog in the
There you go.
She's gorgeous. How old is she?
She's 3.5 now.
Oh, dogs are so mint, aren't they? We're talking about this.
Do you know what? I was the one out of me and my missus that didn't. Not that I didn't want to get her, but it was her idea, and I was trying to put her off, saying, we're never there, you know, it's going to be hard. And now it's me that can't do without her, hence her being with me all the time.
Oh, mate, no, they're the best companions. They become family members. They are family members, aren't they?
I relate to that. I were the same, Marty. My missus, 2 years back now, because we've had Lumi 2 years, she's like pestering me when we was going on holiday to Zanzibar. And I was like, just stop asking me about this dog. We're not getting the dog because we're never home when we're going to be doing this. Going to do proper whinging. Yeah. We've got the dog now, and I hate being like separate from her.
Same. If there's anywhere I can bring her, I'm bringing her. I just wish you could bring her on the plane.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, our dogs are small enough where you could just take them on.
I get away with it.
I've got a Dachshund and a little sausage.
Right.
And what's you need to focus at least 5 minutes on this. Then she'll come back.
She's proper casing the joint out.
She's just scoping it out.
She's just having a sniff around. Yeah.
What dog you got?
Maltipoo, half Maltese, half
She's
poodle.
tiny, she's like this.
She's 2 kilograms, so I get her on the plane.
Well, she was meant to be smaller than she is. She's 10, nearly 11 kilograms, and we were sold the dream that she was going to be that big.
Yeah, they are that big when you get them.
But you're a good girl, aren't you?
We could just... Is this a dog podcast?
Probably.
I could happily talk about dogs for an hour. No bother.
Our missus will be in the background now cheering. Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Eleanor's shouting, going, well, point the camera on him, then. Point the camera on him. When did we first meet, Martin? We were talking about it the other week. What year was it?
It was when... Close to when you did that Elro gig at
2018.
No, 2016.
2016?
2017, maybe.
Something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, in London?
Yeah.
Because you came with
I
us.
came
You came
with
with
you,
me
didn't
and
I?
Eleanor, Ash, and
That's right.
yeah, I remember. That was.
But it was a little
super-
bit before that when we'd met. I think we'd met at Ministry.
Oh, yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Ministry. That was 2016, 2015.
Yeah, it was
but
around that time.
Yeah, almost 10 years ago. And it's flown over.
Mate, that is
Yeah,
gone
it's
like
crazy.
a
I know we've all lost about 2 years with the lockdowns and all that
Yeah.
stuff. That just went. That just disappeared. But I was thinking about this before I got here today on the train, thinking just about our journeys and how we cross paths, and then kind of you meet people in the industry, and then people go different ways. Some people kind of cross again, and we've crossed a couple of times now.
Yeah.
And I've watched you go from. You came to my gig in London, and I was doing the Elrose stuff, and you'd been in the industry for quite a while at that point, and then obviously we went into I don't know whether it was just before lockdown or when did you? Because I remember seeing you in Miami. We talked about this on our text. Remember?
Miami, yeah.
I saw you at
That was
Miami Music
2019,
Conference,
wasn't it?
2019.
Yeah.
And you were playing on Fisher's Show,
Yes, that's right.
and the music conference, and I remember just being like, "Fuck yeah, Martin's."
Yeah,
king."
that was a good weekend.
That was a good weekend. I can't remember much of it, but I'm sure it was fun. But I remember that there's a trajectory for you from that point, which of anyone I've met in the industry, I couldn't be happier to see you just really kind of rise through the ranks, and it was so well deserved. And I want to just start the podcast with that because I know how hard you worked, and you deserve it, man. So
Thank you, bro.
I just want to say that start with that. But yeah, so let's start from the top, because have you guys haven't met before?
No.
So we'll do a bit of backstory, Martin. So for people who don't know who you are, let's go back a little bit, talk about your journey into music, what that looked like, how old were you when you started, when was the moment, like everything. Let's go from the top.
Everything, all of it. Okay,
Let's rewind a little bit.
Where do we start?
Yeah.
I started DJing very early, probably like 13, 14. My friend at school, his brother actually was a Rare Groove record collector. And back then, no one had even heard of Rare Groove. I mean, we certainly hadn't. And it was his older brother. And after school, we used to, when his brother was out, we used to sneak into his bedroom and just play all these mad records like Dennis Coffey and the Bongo Band and all these mad things that you were like, wow, how does he know about these records? And I think that's the thing that got me into it. My friend wanted to be a rapper, and I was never fancied that. I was always about the music. So,
What year was this, and how old were you when this was like?
I would have been 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, early then.
Yeah, early. Yeah. And then I think that planted the seed, the musical seed. And then where did we go from there? I remember buying one turntable. I had my dad's. Just the one. Could only afford one.
Yeah.
I had my dad's Sony belt drive. You know, those big stack hi-fis that everyone had in the 80s. So my dad had that with the turntable on top, and I used to play my record. I'd made a slip mat out of paper and drawn a smiley face on it. So I had that.
Awesome.
And then eventually saved up enough to buy one 1210.
Oh, you went straight for the Technics then, yeah?
Straight in there. So I had one 1210, no mixer, and then one belt drive and a couple of tape decks, and started messing about like that. And I eventually bought the Maplin. Do you remember Maplin?
Maplin.
The old realistic mixer.
Nah.
Old, mate.
Yeah, so
like back in the day.
Maplin was like a
electronics. Maplin's like an electronics like distributor. Like,
Oh, you mean
can get
Maplin
stuff.
shop?
Yeah, the shop. Yeah.
Oh, I know the shop.
Yeah, and they used to
There you
sell
go.
cables and all the electronic
Oh, so
stuff.
they have their own.
Yeah, they had their own brand called Realistic. In fact, they actually made a synthesizer back in the early 80s, I think it was.
No way.
And it was a copy of a Moog, yeah, Realistic synth.
Okay. That's news to me. I didn't know that.
They used to do loads of good stuff, and all of us back then had the Realistic mixer because it was one of the only ones you could buy. I had that for years. I had that till about 10 years ago, literally.
Really?
Until it broke. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that. I just thought that's where people bought like printers and shit.
Yeah, you could buy the lot.
Printers, A4 paper stacks, like fucking staplers. Just like station. I always look at Maplin as like electronics and stationery for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it went a bit more that way before it died.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
back in the 80s, it was, you could buy some proper stuff in there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I ended up getting the mixer and the turntables, and then I think I played a couple of school parties, DJ'd at them, and then.
This episode is powered by Tenzing, the all-natural energy drink made with plants, not a science lab. It's clean, sustainable energy made with none of that dodgy stuff you find in other energy drinks. Now let me tell you what happened when I got a delivery of their new flavour, Fiery Mango. Big crate arrives, I am buzzing, thinking I've got a load of cans to see me through the winter. I open it, one can. Turns out my wife nicked the rest. To be fair, I can't blame her. The Fiery Mango is banging. Juicy mango with a fiery kick of ginger and cayenne pepper. Basically sunshine in a can. And it's not just about the taste. 100% of your daily vitamin D, magnesium for vitamin D absorption, lion's mane for mood and focus, and 160 milligrams of caffeine to power you through the crash. So whether you're working, at the gym, or just surviving that 3 p.m. slump, Tenzing Fiery Mango has you covered. And listeners of this show get 30% off. Just head to tenzingnaturalenergy.com and use the code BEAR30. That's BEAR30 for 30% off. Fire up your winter with Tenzing Fiery Mango. But seriously, hide your stash.
Fast forward to about 1990, or was it 91? 1990, I saved up enough money to have my first studio session because I didn't have my own stuff. Then it was back then you couldn't have a laptop and make music. You had to have the hardware. You had to have your Akai sampler. You had to have a mixing desk.
Expensive.
You had to exactly. Yeah. So for just a little scruff like me with no job, it was hard to get them kind of things quickly. So I'd saved up enough money to get a studio session, and I made this sort of crap demo. But it was all right, but it was crap. It wasn't something that would be released. And then I went to. So the Record Basement in Reading, that was the shop where everyone used to go all the time because that's where I lived.
Yeah.
And I played it to Phil at Record Basement, and he was like, he said, this sounds all right now. I'm going to put you in the studio with Ron Wells. And that was their sort of in-house guy. And that's how it all started. I went to the studio with Ron and made my first release in 91 on the Record Basement label under my name DJ Mayhem at the time.
Oh, nice. Naughty.
So that would have been like rave hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
So 91. So I had a few releases with them on Basement Records, and that's how it started.
Wow.
And then kind of went through a few different genres as the sort of as it moved towards more. Started off ravey, and then I suppose a little bit of garage, mid-90s, and then sort of back to my house stuff because I was always a house fan. I missed this bit out, but my mate at school, so it would have been when I was 12. Is that right? 86, so I was 12. He gave me a blue cassette. His name was Neil Burgess. I'll never forget him. Don't know where he is now, but nice one, Neil. He gave me this blue cassette and it said house music on it. This was 86. And he said, have a listen to that, go home. I remember going home, putting in my dad's tape deck, put the big grey headphones on, and that was it. That was it. I was hooked on house music. So really? I guess that was the seed of where I am now, yeah.
That's what I was really interested to know, because there's always that one moment people remember listening to their first track or buying their first record and being like, fuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That moment,
That was the moment. And then actually from then on, I was spending my dinner money, my school dinner money, on buying records instead of buying the dinner. After school, we'd walk to the record shop and buy records. French. I remember buying French Kiss actually after school.
Tune.
Yeah.
Mint.
Yeah.
So, what are the genres then? Because I didn't know this. And the garage makes sense because, for me, the Northeast had like hard dance. It was like hard house.
It was a bit harder up there, yeah.
And then you had sort of drum and bass and garage, which was more a southern thing. You didn't really hear drum and bass in the Northeast.
Really? Wow.
Nothing. Garage even.
Wow.
We heard garage, the odd commercial garage tune, which was on the radio.
Yeah. But
it was never like a thing. It was always like hard dance in the Northeast.
Yeah, I remember it was always harder up there. But certainly down here, it was the rave, the hardcore, and then I suppose that turned into jungle, and then after that, because I ended up working so I was talking about Record Basement, I ended up working at their studio as their in-house engineer. So eventually, they had the record shop, and then they were a distribution shop as well. and then underneath they had a studio, so that's where I worked for years, and everyone used to come there. And so it was mid-90s, it was a big garage scene, so I ended up producing stuff for people and making my own bits just under random names. I can't even remember the names now, but so that's where the little garage bit came in. And then after that, I got fed up with that, and I was like, I'm going back to house, back to my roots.
Yeah.
And did that house, that going back to your roots, did that kind of carry all the way through? Or did you veer off at any point? I know some people have like started aliases because they knew you were a really good producer. Did you stick with house all the way through then? And, like,
I did from, God, what year would that have been? Sort of, I would say, well, actually, no, I forgot a little bit. After the garage, I kind of got into, I've always played piano. So I was into being in bands, like jazz funk bands. So I did that for a couple of years.
Oh, nice.
And then I didn't really do any producing because I was really focused on playing and being in bands. And then when I worked out there was no money in it, you're getting like 200 quid between 60. Nah, mate. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the playing. I still do. But that's when I was like, right, let me get back to making some music. And so from then on, it would have been house all the way till now. Yeah.
I look back at my production days, and I remember always trying to mess with other genres.
Yeah.
Tried a bit. I even tried to start like making hip hop once. I was like, I just don't want to think about this 16 bar, 32 bar loop. I just want to do something completely different and like almost like zone out.
Yeah.
And I started like garage. I started hip hop, and I could never do it. But I was speaking to Denny and Dean about this previous episode, and I was saying that DJing was always it was the forefront of my career.
Yeah.
I was a DJ first, producer second.
Yeah.
I never really took to producing like other artists do. And I hear other artists have just like, I can't make enough tunes. I've got like thousands of loops. And I did have loops, but I always found it very forced. I was trying to make the music so I could get the gigs.
Right.
So I could get the money so I didn't have to get a job.
Yeah.
That was the way I looked at it, when I look back. But for you, did you lead with the DJing and then producing came second? Do you love producing as much as DJing? Or what could you kind of lead with as an artist?
Well, I was a DJ first, but I would say producing is probably my main thing.
Yeah.
Rather than, I mean, I'm not saying I don't love DJing and what's not to love really, but if I could only do one thing, it would be making music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just remembering to when I eventually bought my first equipment. So I bought a second-hand S950 Akai sampler. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then and a little Mackie 16-channel mixing desk when they first came out. And so that would have been early 90s. And I set it up at my mum's bedroom, at my mum's house, my old bedroom. And I phoned my mate. And I was like, come round and we make a tune. Anyway, he got the bus to my house, right? And on the bus, on the way to my house, he found a keyboard on the top.
No, he didn't.
He found, I've still got it.
No way.
A little Novation keyboard. And he was like, bro, I just found this on the bus. I was like, what? That's
the fucking universe talking there.
Yeah.
And did you make a tune with that keyboard then?
So I think it was Novation's first ever keyboard. It didn't have any sounds. It was just a MIDI keyboard. Literally like this big, a 2-octave thing.
And Novation, the ones that did the launchpad and stuff. Novation, I'm sure I had a Novation launchpad. It was with like the buttons, and you just assigned
I think they did actually, yeah. And after that, the famous one they did was the base station.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looked like the base station, but it didn't have any sounds in it. Yeah. I've still got it.
Mint.
Imagine he just rocks up. I just found this bass station on the side.
That's so random. What year was that then? What year are we talking when you were making that track?
92 maybe.
Yeah. We've got a lot of years to cover still. Let's keep going then. So after that, what your first release then, from that point to getting the release where it was almost, you went, you know when you get that release where it takes you that next notch, where you start getting booked, you start getting noticed. What was that moment for you?
Well, that was, luckily for me, that was my first release that I ever had. It was called Damage by DJ Mayhem, and it was quite a big tune on the old hardcore scene back then. So straight away bookings, I was straight into it, straight DJing from then.
Vinyl obviously.
Oh yeah, only there was no other option.
Of course, yeah. So I'd like to talk to someone about this because we have had a few people who were vinyl only DJs back in the 90s, but a lot of people we have on who just USB DJs, right? What to someone who doesn't know what that's like? Explain what it's like from the very start, not having any tracks, having to buy tracks, like that whole process of being a DJ, which was before CDJs. What does that look like?
I think the main thing, right, is the bit that the guys these days that are just starting are missing out on. It is not the playing of the record, because that's hassle. You know, you get, especially the raves that I was doing underground big warehouse raves, and you're turning up, both decks are vibrating because the monitor's on the next to the fucking deck, the needles are jumping. It was a nightmare, you know, and especially that music as well. It weren't like you had loads of nice smooth beats at the start and the end to mix. It was just straight in, bang, you know. So it was tough. But the bit I think that the kids are missing now that I loved, and everyone I speak to about this agrees, was that every weekend going to the record shop.
I knew you was going to say it.
You just, that's gone now. And that was just like an institution that,
I can see how nostalgic it is talking about it.
Yeah,
now.
Because you'd go there on a Saturday, everyone was in there, everyone in the shop knew you. You'd turn up and you'd have like they'd have a bag of records ready for you under the counter, right? You listen to them, Martin. So you'd go and, you know.
Oh, really? So they pre-selected because they knew you'd want to
So once you became a regular and you were in there, they'd look after you, you know, because they want to keep the business. So, you know, if they only got like 20 Shades of Rhythm promos in that week, you'd have one in your bag. So you turn up, you'd, oh, fucking hell, yeah, I'd have some of that. So it was just really exciting. And then everyone would be stood there, and like if some new records came in while you were there, he'd be playing them on the deck, and you'd have, oh, I'll have one of them. It was just exciting, you know. And it was also a way of connecting with people and meeting other DJs and really sort of getting yourself in the industry. So I feel like that it's a shame that that's gone, but you know, it had to go because it went with the vinyl, and that's. I don't think I'm not nostalgic about the actual vinyl. I think it's better now. Turn up with a little fucking USB stick. Yes, thank you very much.
Carrying. Yeah. Like talk about that. How looking fucking. Cases.
I literally had to do that. I did a rave in a woods once in the 90s, and I had 2 of this big square metal record boxes. I don't know how much they weigh, but they're fucking heavy. And you don't want to be carrying them through the woods at night after you've been drinking and after a night, you know. So I'm grateful that we don't have to do that anymore. And the other thing that was bad about vinyl only was if you made a tune and you wanted to play it, you'd have to go and get a dub plate cut. Yeah. That was 50 quid.
Is that how much it cost? 50 quid?
£50 was standard fee. And back then in the 90s, 50 quid was a lot of fucking money. So, yeah.
Did you? So I know you were following Roger Sanchez around for like 20 years or whatever. Not as a DJ, but as a punter. Did you go to the record shops and hunt and stuff like that, or were you?
Mish, I've been in a few times, but Mish more so. She used to always buy. She'd just buy tunes. We've got a box of vinyl up in the loft.
Mish is his wife.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In Manchester in storage. So yeah, we used to, back in the day, that's how you'd get tunes, either on vinyl or cassette. And then CD came along, and then it's like, yeah. And then after CD, it just goes.
Yeah, I remember even when CDs first came in, I always had this thing that if I didn't have it on vinyl, if I had a CD copy, but I didn't have the tune, I didn't really have it. Yeah. It was just like a fake copy for years and years. Weird. Well,
it's not, because you have a very similar mentality, like the crossover from CDs to USB, right?
Yeah.
And you had this thing, like I used to quite like having that case with everything written on in pen, and I always have 2 copies, because if I was in an afters and I'd fucking left one in there, there's a backup there, and they're also always scratched, and you're like having to go,
Jacky, this sounds very organised for you, mate.
Yeah, knowing who I am. Yeah, but then the crossover to USB is like, oh, we're going to USB. You just turn up with a USB now. DJing's a piece of piss. But I suppose it's just like there's always a resistance to change, right?
Yeah.
So you probably think it's like, you know, that person at the front, you play a tune, they come up and go, I've got that on vinyl.
Yeah.
You know, there's oh yeah, it's like a one-upmanship, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find that interesting. I never went through that era. So when I got my decks, I got 2 Newmark belt drives.
Yeah.
And I went to this record shop in Durham, and I bought, I can't remember the 2 tracks. I think one was, no, it wasn't Cirrus D. It was one Pride tune, Rack Funk.
Right.
And it was, it wasn't even one that matched at all. It was like Super Freak, Super Freak.
So you're giving yourself a hard time trying to mix them two.
Straight away. But after that, you know, I maybe bought like a few boxes of records. But after that, I mean, it was probably, you're probably talking like a year or 2, and then I had CDJ 400s.
Right.
So I was straight in.
Right, yeah.
I'm talking you're talking 15 years ago when I got my Newmarks. No, 16 years ago when I got my Newmarks, and I was 14 when I got my CD. 14 years ago when I got my CDJ. So it was the CDJ 400s were the first ones of the USB input.
Right.
So
I remember that.
I didn't really know how to use it this time because I still had all my CDs.
Yeah.
And I had all these creative CDs. I was like, I'm not going to use a USB because I know exactly what's there.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to make playlists. So they didn't have record box back then.
They didn't have record box.
Record box didn't exist. It was just
No.
and then you loaded it in and there was no waveform. It was just like it used to load as
just squares, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was just it was just a timer.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there was no
Horrible.
waveform.
The other thing, or one of the main things that I miss from vinyl, or even CDs, but mainly vinyl, was if you had a box of records, you could flick through them without picking it up and looking at the label and reading it. You knew what that record was just by the colour of it, just by the sleeve, or you ain't got that now. And I find myself, even though you can make playlists, which we all do now in Record Box, it makes it easier. I still go through my playlists and think, what the fuck's that? What's that title?
Yeah.
I don't know what the titles are.
You're not as connected to it.
No.
I found that when I went from CD to USB, I knew, not with a feel, because obviously all the CDs look the same, but I'd go to the USB and I'd scroll for ages because I can't remember. You know, when you look at a CD, you know how that tune goes. You know how long you've got on the drop to the end of the track. You kind of have an idea.
Yeah.
But I was going through my USB towards the end, like 2019. I was going through and I was like, I actually don't know what to play. I've got thousands of tunes on this USB, and I don't know what to play next. I don't know what. Yeah, it's the same. I don't remember what that tune sounds like.
Yeah. Because you can't, I've never remembered titles. You just remember what they look like, you know, unless it's something massive that everybody knows. But if it's something new, you're not going to remember the title, especially now, because there's thousands of tunes out every week. Yeah. So,
see, most DJs now, even DJs that have been in the game a long time, they'll be stood there scrolling. You can see them.
I do it. I'm scrolling thinking, fuck, which one?
Whereas back in the day, Roger at Pasha, as you were saying before, an example, used to follow him around. 5, 6, 7 record boxes. Like probably 2-3 people would bring these record boxes in. All the vinyl at the back, and the vinyl would be pulled out and turned to the side.
That's it. So it's
lined
up
up, and he'd already, every time you looked, there'd be 4, 5, 6 vinyl. They're already picked. The tunes are already picked. Whereas now, you can just see that it's like scrolling through because there's that much choice. Yeah. It's convenient and it works, but the vinyl days, it was a different flow.
I'm sure I read a stat, and I can't remember where it was it Mix Mag? Something this week, a DJ mag, it was on Instagram, and it said something around the amount of music that was released today was the same is the whole year of 1992 or something. The same amount of tracks. I can believe it. Yeah. The same amount of tracks released today is the same amount that was released in the whole year of 1992 or 1991. Something along those lines. I will get that and double check that.
That sounds about right, though. I've heard something similar.
So it's super saturated.
It's saturated.
Yeah. And I don't know what to think of that. I like the fact that people have the opportunity to release music. And you know, when I was even talking about 10, 11 years ago, trying to get a release on a big label, like you kind of had to know someone. Or like for me, Steve Lawler noticed that track by fucking chance. If Steve Lawler hadn't heard that track, I have no idea if that would have ever happened for me, you know. We can come onto this because you've released music for years and years and years, and it was just like, keep knocking on that door. And this is one thing that I love about you, Martin, because we spoke about a narrow on the phone about a month ago. Yeah. And I'm just going to repeat what I said, but it was that I loved your persistence. You never fucking give up, and I really admire that about you. And it's a really good story of someone who just was never going to take no for an answer.
Well, I think that's just a love for music. I just love music. I've always loved music, and it's what I wanted to do. And it didn't really matter if nobody else liked it. I liked it, you know. So I wasn't going to stop as long as I could feed myself and live. I wasn't really worried about having loads of money or a flash motor or stuff like that. I just wanted to do music and be able to live. And so that's probably where that persistence came from. It wasn't, I want to be famous or anything like that.
No, and that's what I get from you. There's no, we all have an ego, but the ego is fully, ego is fully under control with you, and I always got that, and that's why we always got on. You know,
Thanks,
it kind of resonated really, really strongly. But you were always doing what you wanted to do, but it didn't really. It kind of booted off big time for you, didn't it? I can't remember what year it was, but there was that turning point where. I remember speaking to you on text a few years ago, and you were like, "Yeah, it's gone fucking crazy." Yeah. So let's talk about that. What was that?
All right. Well, fast forward from the 90s, and then early 2000s, I had my my first label of my own, Soul Purpose Records.
Yeah.
And that was all soulful house, because early 2000s, that's what the vibe was. And that went pretty well for a few years. Then I kind of grew out of that. I wanted to get back to the harder stuff, and that's kind of when I started making music under my own name for the first time. So probably like 2008, 9, that kind of time. And so I was just grinding away. By the time we got to 2013, I had a couple of big releases on Offer Records. I don't know if you remember that label.
I remember.
Andre Crom's label.
Yeah.
And so that really sort of got me on the ladder properly. Started gigging a lot then. And that was what they called deep house back then, 2013, all the donk stuff. Nice era, good era that was. A lot of good music came out.
Like the Miguel Campbell style,
all that
stuff.
Yeah. And so that was really happening for a couple of years, and then it just died.
Instantly.
It just instantly died.
Weird that. I always think that was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Overnight. It felt like an overnight
it was
thing.
overnight, and I was sort of left holding the baby, as it were, you know. It was like, oh, right, no one wanted to book me after that. So I had a bit of a lull for a couple of years. That's when we met. We
played at Egg together. Do you remember?
Egg? No, I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm sure we played. I can't remember who booked us, but I'm sure it was you and me playing at Egg. It was like 2015 or something like that, 2016. I'll get the flyer. You'll
get it. I don't remember that.
I'll send you the
really?
flyer. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, but carry on. It was around that time, 2013, there's a deep house thing. And then
and then after that, 15, 16 is when we met, wasn't it? And that's when I was having a bit of a lull because the deep house thing died. And then obviously I was carrying on making music. And I was thinking that my music was getting better and better. Because when I was playing it, it was getting a great reaction. But going back to what you said a minute ago, you sort of had to know somebody, because I was sending it to everyone and nobody wanted. Half of them didn't even listen. More than half of them, 90% of them don't even listen, because unless you're a name that they want to hear from, forget it, mate. You're bottom of the pile. So that's sort of how it was, and I was really, really, really having to consider if I could carry on like properly this time. You know, if I was going to have to go get a job and maybe just do music part-time kind of thing. And my mate, James, DJ Corrupt, I don't know if you know him. He used to run Tank in Sheffield. I'd played there a few times when I was having it off with the deep house thing. And he said to me, I've got Fisher. This is before Fisher was big, but he was still big, but not as big as it. He goes, I've got Fisher coming to play. Do you want to do the warm up for him? And maybe you know, might hear what you've got, kind of thing. So he was purely doing it out of a favour to me, not because he needed to have me on there, because he definitely didn't. And I was like, oh yeah, please. So I played before Fisher, and I played all my stuff that I was sending to everyone and no one was listening to. And at the end of my set, Fish, he was like, fuck me, what's that? And I was like, I'll send it to you, bro. So he gave me his email, I sent it to him. Then the very next day, he emailed me back and he was like, I want that. And it was hooked.
Yeah.
And I'd send that to everyone. I'd send it to everyone and nobody wanted to know. And because he saw me play it and it went off, he was like, yeah, I'll have that.
First hand.
And first hand. And that was like, thank you, God. And that's what put me back on the ladder again.
And what year was that? Were you say 18?
That
19?
was 18.
18.
Yeah.
And that,
2018.
Yeah, because the year after when we saw each other in Miami, I was a little bit worse for wear when I saw you at that Fisher party.
I remember that. I thought Jacky's having a good time.
I was a hot mess.
You were allowed to be a hot mess. It's Miami. Come on.
I went up to Chloe Fisher's.
Oh yeah.
And because Eleanor followed her on Instagram, I was like, I just want to let you know my wife. Was it? No, yeah, my wife. We've been married a year, 2 years. No, get this right, 1 year. My wife loves you. She listens to you and said, oh, she's done it. And she was like, okay, thanks. Just fucking backed on it. I was like, Eleanor, I think I'm just showing you up in front of Chloe. I hope she doesn't remember that. But 2019, I remember seeing because the last time we saw each other at the show was when I'd played in London for Elro.
The outright
2017. It was 2 years before.
Right.
I remember us having conversations, and you were saying, "I'm not going to stop knocking on the door. I'm going to keep going. I'm pushing on. And then just seeing you really starting to kind of fucking smash it was just, it was just beautiful to see.
Thank you, Rob.
And from then, fucking hell, I mean, you're still.
But it just shows you though that
going strong.
It's not just solely down to you being good or having talent or anything. You always need somebody to recognise that or take you on board or give you a lift up.
Yeah.
Without that, it doesn't matter how good you are.
No.
If you're not lucky, right time, right place. Like my friend James put me on that gig, and thank God he did. If I wasn't there, I probably would have had to go and get a job, But
it's persistence.
I was just going to say that's the moment where persistence pays off.
Yeah.
You can only get the true persistence, like Martin's story there. That's a long time of being persistent. You can only do that, in my opinion anyway, if it's for something where you've got a deep-rooted purpose and love.
Yeah.
Because he genuinely loves what he does. Persistence is it's tough, but it's almost easy to do because you're in that zone.
You bang on it. It's just second nature because that's what you do. You make music, so why would I ever stop? Yeah.
I just love it. I just love.
Thanks, man.
What is there's that saying? I'm sure it's one of the guys who started McDonald's said, we're an overnight success. 20 years in the making.
I love that.
Because it is. It can feel like that. You knock, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this guy's come out of nowhere, and you're like, no, I've fucking not come out of nowhere. I've been fucking cracking on for years.
Well, I'm going to ask Martin about that because I've seen on your social media page, Martin, where you got a gold disc with CR2 for head noise, and on there you put 32 years in the game, and I thought, nice.
Did I write that on there? I remember that.
32 years in the game, but been in the game a long time. And how did that feel? How was that moment for you?
Getting that, I suppose it's kind of a bit of validation, isn't it? And it's nice to have that sort of recognition. It was lovely. I've always wanted a gold disc, and so this was like, wow. Yeah, it's one of the bucket list ticks,
Okay, now it's a huge bucket list tick. Not many people would be able to say that, mate.
And you know what made it even better was that was one of the songs that I sent to probably every label.
You told me about this on the phone the other month.
And
everyone
turned it down. And some of them had some comments about it as well. I don't like this, I don't like that. The synth was shit. It's not original. I'm like, okay. But when I play it, everyone loves it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like with the Fisher example, sending it out there, nobody's replying, no one's even listening to it.
They're not listening.
Fisher, he hears it, sees it, and then he's like, let's go. And like what you were saying with luck before, luck does come around and there's certain elements, but that's obviously decent music because Fisher's heard it and he's like, I'll sign it straight away. And it's like with the CR2 gold disc, a lot of people not recognising it, and then all of a sudden it's just boom. So there's a luck element of being in the right place at the right time, but I think that's where the persistence and the love and all them things come together. Like the Beatles, they had they got declined saying you're never going to be a band, and then look what happened with them. So you always get these moments in time, but fair play to go through different genres, different times, different stages, different phases, and still keep going because it's what you love. And to get there, and that's why I was saying I can see the way that because I'm like that with recognition, because I've had awards in the past for my business and things that I've done, and I'm always very quiet and I don't like talking about them or celebrating them. I have a bit of uncomfortability of dealing with it, and I can see with you, but it's a nice moment. And when you put I made a note of it because when I read 32 years in a game, I thought instantly, I just thought fucking fair play, man.
Thank you, man.
Really good stuff.
Yeah. So what's going on now then?
Well, I had to have a little break from touring. We spoke about this on the phone.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I didn't know you want to talk about that, but I mean, completely up to you.
It's fine. Yeah, probably loads of people know. Everyone knows I've had a bit of an ear problem, and
where did that start? By the way, I don't think we even really.
So it started in February, and it's been the whole year with sort of a weird blocked ear, and they don't really know what to do about it. I say they, the doctors, all the ENT consultants that I've been to. So it was decided that it would be a good idea to not fly, because just to let everyone know, it's a feeling of pressure in both my ears, mainly the left one. You know, when you're coming down on a plane, you get pressure.
Yeah,
so I've got that feeling. It was all the time. It's starting to not be all the time now, thank you God. And they said it would be a good idea to not fly. So I just I've had like 6 months of not flying now. I'm going to start flying again in January. So I'm very apprehensive. My first flight is 13 hours as well.
Where you going?
Thailand.
Oh,
yeah.
Christ.
I know. So it is a gig, but I'm also making a holiday of it as well. So the missus is coming with me for a bit of moral support. So I've just been making music while I've not been gigging too much. I've been doing UK and Europe gigs. Excuse me. Ollie, sit down. Come on, it's not your turn yet.
Look at her. It's beautiful.
She wants us to make a comment.
What do you want to say? What do you want to say?
That's the difficult thing though, because you make your main income from performance and you're not flying, so that puts a massive barrier against you making your bread, right?
This is the thing, and for people that aren't in the game and don't know, and they see you releasing all these tunes and thinking, oh, he must be making loads of... You don't really make the money off the music.
No.
It's from the gigs. You put the tunes out to get the gigs, as you rightly said. And so when you can't do the gigs, you're not earning any money, basically.
No. But you have been trying to get round that by going on... I mean, you went on the Eurostar and stuff, Amsterdam, and
I did,
trying to get round that.
I've done a bit Germany, Paris, Amsterdam. I've done a few Europe gigs on the Eurostar, which is great. And a few UK gigs. But to be very honest, there's not a lot of gigs in the UK for what I play, tech house. It's very sort of minimal over here.
Yeah.
And there is a few tech house gigs, but not many. So there's not a lot of work here really for that.
Yeah, it's that like Dutch sound, isn't it? Or like that sort of the no art stuff and Christmassy and prunk and that sounds massive over here at the moment. Yeah. But where's ironically, sorry, is the word I was looking for. Tech house is massive in the US.
I know,
which is on a flight.
Which is on a flight now. So I've had to stop playing, gigging, which is annoying because I just had a number one on Beatport, me and Matroda together, and so all the gigs were coming in. And I was like, oh yeah, can we do it next year?
That's just again ironic. It's sod's law, right?
You've
got this thing as well. You've got to capitalize off these opportunities.
You do, because
that's when you're hot.
That's
right. When the tracks come out and they pop and they go number one or whatever it is, and you get traction. That's when you've got to grab it, because people's memories are 5 minutes long these days. They forget about you very quickly, and it's tough. But luckily, I've got a load of gigs lined up for next year, thankfully. So I'm going to do the first few with the flights and see how the old Britney Spears hold up, and fingers crossed I'll be all right and I'll be able to carry on. Yeah, no, I thank you for telling us that story. I know we spoke on the phone about this, and we kind of related in a way, because I was having this issue with my throat. I don't know whether I told you about this.
Yeah, you told me. Yeah.
Having like this issue with my throat where I was swallowing food and I was choking. So I was choking on food and I didn't know why. And I spoke to the doctor, like we had Bupa, so I called Bupa and they're like, you got to go and get a camera down your throat and all this. And every time I was then eating, I was like panicking, almost like I was getting anxiety to eat food. Now, we have to eat food all the time. I was in Ibiza, and obviously I'd had a couple of drinks, so maybe I was dehydrated, but I was going out for meals, and I was sat there, and I was like, I don't want to fucking even have a drink of that water, because I'm scared I'm going to, like, choke on it. So I was panicking all the time, like having these, like, mini panic attacks for no reason. And we were going through this at the same time when you were having a real bad time with your ears. I know it was maybe starting to die down, but you just been through a bit of an episode with your ears, and I was like, I completely relate. It's like you're panicking over something that hasn't happened yet, which makes it almost it's going to happen because your brain's so powerful.
Oh
right?
yeah, you can make it happen.
You can make it happen.
I was having a similar thing. You're talking about panicking because of the blocked ears. It made it so I couldn't hear my own voice properly. You know, when you got your hands over ears and you talk. So that's what it was like for me. And so that was panicking me. And where you were saying, I didn't even want to drink the food, drink or eat the food. I was the same with talking. I don't want to talk.
Well, because it was making you...
Because it was sounded weird to me. So I'd be going out trying not to speak and like overthinking it. Like, oh, am I going to be able to hear myself if I speak? Yeah. And you can make yourself...
You go in a spiral, don't you?
Yeah, you can make it happen. So yeah, it's taken me quite a long time to get out of that sort of habit. It's a bad habit. It's a negative spiral.
It is, but it's a difficult position to be in, because when you're a music lover, for one, and then you're an artist and your career's based around your ears, and your ears are not playing ball, and it's like, where do you go with this? It's like, I remember when Waff was on, and he was on about his ears after Burning Man. He was obviously shit scared, and rightly so. Yeah. But you, like you said, the overthinking, you can go down. I remember James Abela as well. He had tinnitus. He had to cancel a gig. I didn't really see him gigging for nearly 12 months. So it's one of them where, as cliche as it sounds, your well-being and your physical well-being comes first. But I imagine it is annoying when you've got tracks and you've got potential gigs to do, but you can't go.
Yeah. Put it this way, I know the demand for Martin in places like America is fucking massive. Yeah. So having to turn these shows down, it's difficult, man. So you've obviously got the worry of income, you've got the worry about your ears because like it's part of your career, and you're overthinking things, so then you're going in this like mental spiral. And the last time it was the first time we spoke this year, you were in a pretty bad place, and to see you now and for you to come down here and have this conversation with me, I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate it. Really I'm glad I could come and do it, because when we did speak the first time, there was no way I could have done it. The anxiety was so bad. I didn't want to leave the house.
No, I was trying to go for a walk with Martin. He was like, I'll let you know when I can. So that's just to go out the house and go for a walk. Yeah. And so to see him sat here now, the same year, it's great to see. And it sounds like, it does sound like, based on what you said today, that you are going out the other end of it. I
feel like I am, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Really good to see.
You. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, so just to go back to what you said earlier, like, what have you been up to with the no gigs and that? I've started a label.
Yes,
so
tell us about that. Tell us about that.
So I've wanted to do one for years anyway. Ever since I told you earlier, I had a label called Soul Purpose, and I stopped that years ago. But ever since then, I've always wanted to have a new one. But because of the touring, and you know what the schedule's like when you're touring, you flat out, you've got no time to do anything. Yeah.
Or if you do, you've got no energy.
Exactly. You can't do it properly. And running a label's a big job. It's all right if it's just for you and you're just putting your own tracks out, but I wanted a proper label, signing things. And then Toolroom said to me a few months ago, let's do a collab label. It's your label. You call it what you want to call it. You do the A&R, all the music's down to you, but we'll run the back end. And I was like, really? Okay.
Perfect.
Let me snap your hand off. I'll have that. So that's what's happening. And they've got an amazing team. It's Toolroom. It's the same team that are running Toolroom that are running the back end of my label. So they do all that. And I'm doing the music and doing the A&R. So I've been doing, that's taken up most of my time actually with the non-gigging. Oh, Lolly's farted. Sorry.
Oh, she has. Oh, that's
Lolly,
honking.
Come on. No wonder you've gone over there. Oh. Sorry, boys.
Right.
I'm all right. Smells like one of mine, I think.
I don't know why you're wagging.
I'm sure it wasn't you.
Yeah. I just grasped myself up, didn't I?
I don't know why you're wagging your tail.
Yeah, I don't know why you look so excited.
Yeah. Sorry, lads.
That's all right. We've all got dogs. It's all good.
Yeah. Can't believe you've done
Well, it's okay. We went up just to kind of digress here a little bit. Went to Eleanor's cousins at the weekend. We walked in. They've got a sausage dog. We got a sausage dog. They're cousins. She went in. Beeline, living room, shit.
No.
She's been there about 5 times. So at least it wasn't a number 2.
She probably felt comfortable doing it then.
A bit too comfortable. Sorry, carry on the label.
Can you imagine you just did that? Beeline.
Yeah. Hang on a sec. Just going to drop the kids off in the front room.
So go on then. So label, time consuming.
So that's what I've been doing while I've not been gigging, is getting it up and running. We've got the first release on the 29th, which is, when is that? What we know, it's next Friday, right?
Amazing.
So the first release is me and Grant Nelson. And we've got a nice few bits coming as well. I've signed a nice few things. And I thought this A&R lark will be quite easy because, I know what I'm listening for, mate. It's a different kettle of fish when you're listening to stuff to sign. For me, it's got to tick a few boxes. And my manager's like, oh, you'd be able to run through that. Like, I've got 100 demos to go through. And
it's time consuming when
very time consuming because I want to give it the proper time. I'm not just flicking out, no, that's shit, or that's really good. I'm like really thinking about it. And then and a lot of them I'm emailing back and I'm like, if you can I'm trying to help, but this is what I said when I started the label. I did a post, and one of the things I want to do is get the younger kids up to the next level, so if they send stuff in, hopefully I can guide them to get it up to the next level, and then we can sign it. That's what I want to do, So it's basically very time consuming.
But very rewarding though if you're going to be helping these artists on that journey.
Yeah. I think it's really rewarding to be able to, give a little bit back to them, help someone else out,
Well, it's because you know what that journey's like. You've been there for years, and you've seen knocking on doors and not getting answers. Yeah. And now you're on the other end of that, and I think that's going to be a great full circle for you.
And I always said back then that I just think that the people in the A&R positions weren't taking their job seriously enough, not giving it enough time, and I don't want to be that person. I want to. All right, if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. But if there's elements there, then I want to be able to coax that out of the people,
Yeah. So what's the label called again?
It's called Nowhere, but spelt with a K, as in you know where.
Wicked. Have you released anything yet? No,
first release is next Friday, 29th of November.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, just going to say anything else you want to plug? I mean, the label sounds amazing. Anything else that you want to
just
mention?
Give the label a like on Instagram, Nowhere Records.
We'll put all the links in the bottom in the comments for this.
That'd be really helpful.
Yeah. And
because we're just starting off, so I think we've got about 1,000 followers at the moment. So any followers is help.
We'll do our best to
Lovely.
There. Pete, is there anything else you want to ask Martin?
No,
I've been hogging this show.
No,
mate,
I'm just
I haven't seen Martin in so long.
I know, but I feel like we could chat here for about 5 hours.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, he's been in the game a long time, so what I would say is you mentioned it then, Martin, about the younger kids and the label and the stuff that you're doing. And I think it's at the right time for you at the minute based on where you're at with your situation. And I want to say thanks as well. I didn't realise your journey of what you've been through with the anxiety regards to that, and rightly so, and fair play to you. So I want to shake your hand as well.
Thank you very
much
for
coming down.
Thank you.
But if you was to say in the industry, now that you've been in for a very long time, what would you say is one of the biggest myths that success can be regarded in the industry that you're in? What would you say to the younger kids as that don't regard that as success? What would you say the real success is?
That's a tough question, man. He's put me right on the spot.
He's been building all these questions to this one big one. So go.
I think that's probably different for everybody.
Yeah.
Like for me, it wouldn't be anything to do with sort of social media success. Like certain people would class that as success, being popular. I don't think being popular when it comes to music I don't regard them as the same things, So if people are buying your tracks or playing your tracks, even to a small degree, I'd say that was more success than just being popular because you're popular. Some people can be popular just because they've got a great personality, and that's great. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do that, but I would want to be popular because my music's good. So I think it's different for everyone,
Great answer.
Very good answer.
Right.
Hopefully that tick that one.
No, definitely, because we've had other guests on, and we've had a range. Recently we've had some newer artists that are relatively new in the game in the past 5 years, 10 years, and then we've had artists on like yourself, Roger Sanchez, Judge Jules, Seb Zito was another one as well.
Nice.
You guys have got decades and decades in a scene that's changed so much.
Yeah.
And now for younger kids, sometimes the perspective of what success as an artist is warped a little bit. So that's why I always ask the question to people like yourself for the audience that's listening, because you have a lot of perspective, insight and wisdom in a scene that's been where it's been and changed, but you're still in it and you're still doing very well at what you do. So definitely wise words that you've passed on there for sure.
Well, if it helps somebody, then that's all that matters.
Thank you. Wicked.
Thanks, guys. Well, before we wrap up, we do a feature on the show called Pass the Book.
Oh, yeah.
So the previous guest leaves the next guest a book, not knowing who it's for.
Oh.
So this was left by Denny and Dee Ramirez. And it's The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. I don't know whether you've read it or not.
I haven't. Is this for me?
This is for you.
This is amazing.
This is from Denny and Dee Ramirez.
No
they left it for you. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, guys.
So
Denny and Dee Ramirez.
Did you get a one-liner off them?
No, I didn't.
Well, I've got kind of a semi-one off them.
Well, make it quick because we've got to wrap up next guest.
I've never read the book, and I'm actually going buying the book because they just said it's literally a manual of spirituality. Like, it's very spiritual driven.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's amazing.
Boys, I'm blown away. Thank you very much. That is wonderful. So how do I give back then?
So after the show, when we stop recording, you tell me, you tell us the book, and we'll give it to the next guest. You don't know who that guest is.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pass the book.
Thank you.
Well,
pass the book.
Martin, I want to just say thank you for your... I'm going to call it bravery because I know what your journey this year has been like, and it's been great to see you and catch up. We could have probably done another 4 hours, but it's really good to see you.
Yes.
And I really wish you the best of luck with your ears, with your career. I can't wait to see where it goes.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me, and thanks for dragging me out because I've really enjoyed it.
Good.
Oh, brilliant. Wicked.
We'll do it again. I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Okay.